My name is Larry Swartz, and I worked for lighting construction, actually from the time I got out of college to pretty much to today. The previous presidents that preceded me were Tim Welsh and Dave Shea, and the ones that succeeded me were Ron Clark and Terry Goble. I don't really remember any significant big issue that we had to deal with. I believe that some of the things that were becoming more significant in our industry were the importance of safety and how we were going to improve safety focus and safety protocols in our industry. And another one was, I think, the early stages of realizing that there was going to be a battle for talent, and trying to figure out how we would get younger people interested in the construction industry, and particularly the trades, because it had probably turned well, when I was growing up, it was pretty much considered essential that you went to college in my family. And I think the reality is that there are a lot of people that aren't really cut out for college. And there was actually almost a stigma that if you didn't go to college, that you were somehow a failure. And we felt that would be an uphill battle for us, trying to get young people come out of high school and go into some kind of a training program. I think a couple of the goals that I did have were associated with safety and generating interest in younger people to come into the construction trades. And I'm pleased that during that year we were actually able to bring on board a safety director and equip him with a van and start to increase the focus and provide the member companies a good resource for how to improve your training programs. And then we also had meetings with some of the local school districts in regards to how can we introduce some kind of curriculum within your district to show young people the opportunities that exist in the construction trades. Yeah, so the DC trips, the regional, district trips were amazing. They were very educational. It was actually pretty exciting when we went back to DC to see the influence that the AGC has in representing its member companies, and how they have the ear of a lot of people in Congress, and even the president, more so at certain administrations than others. But and actually getting to go into the briefing room and have the president speak to us was pretty amazing. It was just a smaller group of people in a very intimate setting with the President of the United States there, and that kind of elevated the appreciation for how much AGC is able to do for our industry. I know that I was very busy. I was a project manager at the time, and I had a lot a lot going on in managing projects, and so it was quite a balancing act to take care of those and try to do respectable service as my role as president of the AGC. So from my perspective, we were busy and doing just fine. The AGC staff, I believe, was, I felt very confident in them, that they were competent. There was Merv, who I think was very instrumental in helping the AGC accomplish, its mission, which is to really watch out for the interests of its member companies. And Carolyn Pierce was there, and then I think, was it Jay Myers, I think, had come on. And then Monty Geiger was also there, and these are, people that were, I felt good about. Yeah. I got involved in construction probably by virtue of the fact that my parents had owned and operated an electrical construction company in Moses Lake, pretty much from the time I was born to the time I graduated from college. When I went to college, I actually thought that I wanted to be an architect. And after a year of college and doing more reflection and a little more research on what being an architect might look like for me, I decided to change and get my degree in construction management. And I have an older brother who actually had gotten his MBA and worked back in New York in the financial district for 5 years, and then came out to join my father and mother in the family business. And I do recall my father approaching me in my, I think it was in my junior or senior year of college, about, your brother's kind of anxious to know what the future here might hold for him, and I've told him I need to know what your plans are before I decide that. And I had to tell my father at that point, because I had already concluded in my mind that as much as I appreciate the opportunity and his desire to have me come into the family business, that I had a stronger interest in becoming a general contractor, and that I felt that I had a very good relationship with my parents and my older brother, and that it would probably have a higher likelihood of staying that way if I didn't go into the family business. So I ended up at Lighting Construction. Well, I would say the most significant memory I have would most likely be the Husky Stadium North Stands Addition project. And it was significant because in the middle of construction there was an unfortunate collapse, which happened toward the end of February in 1987. And probably 15% of the structure was up, and it all came down, and we were shut down for some period of time. And the first football game was scheduled for August 5th of that year. And it was the common belief, I think, throughout the industry and the state, that there was no way that project would ever get done, and it was going to end up in lots of litigation and lawsuits, and so we we pulled together and we kind of got together with all of our subcontractors and the project team and said, look, we believe the only way we can come out of this thing, make it right, is if we figure out how to get this project done in time for the first game and essentially prove all the naysayers wrong, which we knew was going to be a significant feat. And thankfully, at the end of the day, we did complete the project. They did play that game on August 5th. It was a beautiful fall day, and it was actually September 5th, not August 5th. The Huskies won. So it all ended well, but it was very, very stressful during the last half of that project. You know, when I first started, there was not much of an open shop presence in construction, in the commercial industrial side. And that started to change in the 80s, you know, kind of as a response to a significant economic downturn, I think, and people trying to come up with a better solution that they believed they could sell to owners. And then there's also, obviously, as any industry, there's been a lot of change just related to technology, and that's been an ongoing and accelerating part of change within our industry. But I would say that the most significant change in my mind is, particularly with the kind of work we do, is the way that the projects are now delivered. Whereas when I first started in the business, and for the first probably more than half and closer to 2/3 of my career, a lot of work, I mean, most of the work was done design, bid, build. So it was just, you know, head-to-head competition of who can come up with the lowest price. And we have now evolved to a couple of different forms of project delivery, one being GCCM, that's been, you know, has increased significantly in the last 20 years in our industry. And the other is design build, which did not come on as quickly as GCCM, at least in our markets, and but now is becoming more and more common. And both of those forms of project delivery have transformed, I believe, the relationship between our clients and us, and our clients and the design teams, and all of our business partners, our subcontractors, our suppliers. And I think it's been a much better thing, because we are not selling ourselves on price. We are selling ourselves on really competence and trust, you know, trustworthiness, and the ability to demonstrate to owners that we are enjoyable to work with and we are going to take care of them. We belong to the AGC because we believe it's essential that pretty much any industry have a healthy association that represents the industry as a whole, and the members, the companies that rely on that industry. I was first introduced to what trade associations meant when I was growing up, because my father was very active in NECA, so the National Electrical Contractors Association. And I saw through him, sitting around the dinner table, going to conventions and seeing the impact that it had, the influence that it had, and how the member companies benefited from that. In his days, he was a union contractor, and he had collective bargaining agreements just like we have at the AGC. So I was introduced to that, at a young age growing up, and I had a pretty good idea of what the AGC meant to general contractors and in the construction industry as a whole when I first started my career. And so it was a pretty easy sell. They were very instrumental, have been very instrumental, in multiple respects, from the labor force, labor negotiations, basically leading collective bargaining groups through contract negotiations, which sometimes they're not easy. They seems to be more divisive than they are today. I think that labor and management have done a much better job of figuring out how to get along and protect each other's interests, as opposed to being us versus them. They have been a great resource for training, superintendent training, safety training. Obviously, they do a lot to protect our interests with any activity in legislation, whether it be local, county, state, national, which is very important. And we could not accomplish what is accomplished by the AGC by going out and trying to do that as individual member companies. There's just no way that could happen. There would be the haves and the have-nots, right? The mega contractors would have all the influence, and the smaller ones would have very little influence. So, it's also, there are a lot of growth opportunities, through seminars and it's not all industry related. Some of it's personal related, how to do things that improve our life outside of work is also something that you can get. If you go to one of the conventions, there's a whole range of seminars that you could attend. And then there's the social aspect of it, which is, I think is important. It's, healthy competition is good. And, when I mentioned the individuals that I went through the chairs with, I consider all of them good friends of mine, even though, we were chasing most of the time the same work. And it didn't feel that good when somebody else won the project and we didn't. And I'm sure that was vice versa. That said, there's been something very special and enriching about those friendships, those relationships. And I think that in itself helps the AGC be more effective for its member companies. We are the AGC.